Welcome to Education Online Program. I'm teacher Regina Massimo, teaching you biology for Senior 3 and Senior 4. Our topic is importance of photosynthesis and respiration for living things. We know very well photosynthesis and respirations. These are biochemical processes. They take place within the cell in the body of living organism. So that means they're playing a role in the life of living organism. So the role played by these two biochemical processes can be summarized into 3 points as follows. 1. Provision of basic elements. Provision of basic chemical elements. Chemical elements. That means these two biochemical processes provide living things with essential elements. They provide living things with essential elements. This is the role number 1 played by photosynthesis and respiration in the body of living things. The second role is the energy provision. Energy provision. That means photosynthesis and respiration, they provide most of the energy needed by living things. They provide most of the energy needed by living things. To carry all the biological processes. The third role, because we have said that their roles can be summarized into 3 points. The third point, carbon cycle. They play a role in carbon cycle. That means photosynthesis and respiration, they are parts of carbon cycle processes. They are parts of carbon cycle processes. Why? Because respiration or cellular respiration release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, while the photosynthesis pulls out the carbon dioxide of the atmosphere. Cellular respiration releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. While photosynthesis pulls out the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. atmosphere. So these are the three roles normally respiration and photosynthesis play in the life of living organisms. Now we can discuss one of these roles, which is provision of basic chemical elements, which says that these two biochemical processes provide living things with essential elements. So our subtopic of today is going to be the role of photosynthesis and respiration in provision of basic elements, or in basic element provision. Roles of photosynthesis and respiration in basic element provision. In basic elements provision. There are 6 common elements. There are 6 most common elements in the body of living organisms. What are these 6 most common elements? These are carbon dioxide, nitrogen, hydrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and sulfur. These are the 6 most elements in living organisms. When the atoms of these elements are assembled together, that means when they are combined together, they form organic and inorganic compound, chemical compound. And these organic and inorganic compounds, they form some of the structures of the cell. They form some of cell structures. For example, cell membrane or plasma membrane. Cell membrane, or it's called plasma membrane. This one of the, as an example, one of the cell structures that can be formed by these organic or inorganic compounds. The same organic and inorganic compounds, they carry very important biochemical processes within the cell. They carry very important processes in the cell. They carry out very important processes our life. For example, some of organic compounds which are formed from this element, they serve as a store for genetic information. Genetics information. And some of these inorganic compounds that can be formed from the elements or from the atom of these elements, they can serve as solvent or medium for reaction, cellular reactions. So these are some examples of these elements. If they are formed, whether organic or inorganic, they have functions in our body, and at the same time they are the one making up some of the cell structures. So what are these organic and inorganic compounds can be formed from these elements, or can be formed from the atoms of these elements? Like carbohydrates. These are the carbohydrates, which are sugars, represented by glucose, CHO. Lipids, this is represented by oil, fats. Number 3, proteins. Number 4, nucleic acid. Nucleic acids. This DNA and RNA. So these 4 categories of the chemical compound, they are organic. Then also water can be formed from that 6 common elements, and water is inorganic compound. Water, because when you look at the formula of water, it is H2O. That means we have combined the atom of hydrogen element with the atom of oxygen element. At the end, we form what? Water. And this is one of the inorganic compound that can be formed of the 6 elements. So all these, they have what? Functions. All these chemical compounds, they have functions. Like this carbohydrates, which is sugar, it's a source of energy. Source of energy. Lipids. The lipids, the one is stored in the body of plant is called what? Oil. But the one is stored in the body of animal is called fat. So these lipids, they synthesize what? Hormones. Some of the enzymes and hormones, they are lipids in nature. Hormone synthesis. So that the one make up the hormones. They're also source of energy. This is number 2, lipids. Source of energy. and also it is basic unit of cell membrane structure. One of the units of cell membrane structure. Then proteins. The function of protein is help in growth and development and tissue repair. Is also one of the units of cell membrane structure. So from here we have learned that lipids and proteins, they are units that make up cell membrane structure, because the cell membrane is like this. It's made up of layers, 2 layers of protein. These are the protein layer, then 1 layer of lipids is sandwiched between the 2 protein layers. That is called phospholipid. So this layer is phospholipid layer. That's why cell membrane is known as lipoprotein. It's called lipoprotein. That means they are made up of lipids and proteins. So this is an example of this compound can make up cell structures. Then coming to the nucleic acid. Nucleic acid include DNA and RNA. The function of them, they are carrying very important processes for the life of living organism. It's passing on the genes of living organism. That's why one of their functions is storage of genetics information. Number 2, expression of genetic information. So here water is served as a solvent. To dissolve solute in the ore, it is also a medium of structure, a medium of reactions. That means reactions in the body of living organism cannot take place without water, because the nutrient our cells can absorb should be dissolved first. Is like iron. Like these salts cannot be absorbed when they are still in form of molecule unless they're dissolved. So when they're dissolved, they get ionized. So the ions can be what? Carried along the body parts to be absorbed by the cells. There are also other elements which are very important for the proper functions. There are also other elements for proper functioning of body. Of living things. What are these elements? These elements are sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium, and iron, plus chlorine and fluorine. These are the other elements, they're also very important for the life of living organism. These are the sodium, potassium, calcium, magnesium, fluorine, chlorine, and iron, Fe. These elements, if their atoms are assembled together, they form inorganic compound. They form what? Inorganic compounds, such as salt, e.g. salt. Like sodium chloride, potassium chloride. So these are inorganic compound, and this inorganic compound is very essential for our body. The example of given, this sodium chloride or potassium chloride, they are salts. So when they dissolve in the water, we have talked about it, they form what? Body fluid. They form body fluid because the fluid is a solvent plus the solute. Solute are the salts. These two salts dissolve in water. That's why we said water serve as solvent. So when these salts are dissolved in solvent or in water, they form ionic fluid. Ionic fluid. Ionic fluid. This ionic fluid has very important role to play in the cell of living organism. So it is the one controlling the passage of substance in and out of cell. Controls the passage of substances, water and substance, other substance, in and out of cell. So this example of the fluid, ionic fluid in the cell is cytoplasm. Cytoplasm. It is really fluid, and this is where most of the reactions take place. So it serves as a medium for chemical reaction within the cell. Like sodium ion and potassium ion, they also play role in the transmission of nerve impulses. The ion of sodium and ion of potassium, they play role in transmission of nerve impulses. Between the brain and all parts of the body. Within the brain and all part of the body. Calcium ion is very important in muscle contraction. Calcium ion, very important in muscle contraction to cause movement. The muscle contract to cause movement. Fluorine form a salt with calcium. Fluorine ion can form with calcium a salt, and this salt make the teeth and the bones very strong. This salt made up of calcium and fluorine it makes teeth and bones very strong. Very strong. Another example for these elements like iron. Iron play role in formation of hemoglobin in the red blood cells. Formation of hemoglobin. Formation of hemoglobin in the red blood cell. In the red blood cells. Thanks for listening. We call it a day. We meet next time.